Good morning to all. Today the topic which is going to be Cobol arithmetic verb. Okay, so this is going to be one of the important verb that we have in second unit. Okay, so from unit 2, this particular verb which is going to be a very important verb because to perform arithmetic operation. So any arithmetic operation that you people have to perform in Cobol program, surely we need the support, or surely we need the help of this particular arithmetic verb. So you people are very thorough with various arithmetic operators and how those arithmetic operators it used to work, and then how the resultant value it is going to produce. But here in Cobol arithmetic verb, we have some various forms and then various process in solving problems, or in solving the calculations whatever that you're going to do. Okay. So normally in programming languages we used to learn about expressions. Expressions in the sense the combinations of the operator and the operands, the combinations of operator and operands, we used to call it as an expressions. So that's about expressions. So the next question is going to be what is meant by operator and what is meant by operands. So automatically the question rises. So if the expression which denotes operator and operands, and what is going to be the operator and operands. So you people know about operators. The operators are whatever the arithmetic operators that we have, like plus, minus, and then asterisk, and then a division symbol. So all those symbols, and then you have one more symbol, modulus symbol. So all those symbol which represents a particular operation, arithmetic operation for a program. So operands means whatever the variables, whatever the identifier names that we used to use, those identifier names we used to call it as an operands here. So it may be an literals, or it may be literals in the sense directly will have value, but the operand which specify actually whatever the data item name that you're going to use here in Cobol program. So in other languages normally we used to use variables, but here in Cobol language we are going to use what? We are going to use some data item names, or else we used to call it as an identifier, or else some literals. These things which is going to act like operands for us. And then instead of operators we have some verbs. So that's why the title which is going to be what? Arithmetic verbs. So we are not going to use any operators over here. So instead of operators we are going to use what? We are going to use some arithmetic verbs. Verbs in the sense some words, actually those words which used to act like verb for us. Okay, so verb in the sense normally to perform some actions, normally in English we used to refer the term what? Verb. Similarly here in Cobol we used to use some various verb, those verbs which used to perform some actions actually. So using those verbs we used to perform some actions. So here in this arithmetic verb we have verbs like add, subtract, and then multiply, and then divide. Just we have 4 arithmetic verbs. Actually these words actually we used to mention it in the capital letters: add, subtract, and then multiply, and then divide. So all these words you have to mention only in capital letters. So using these words, using these verbs actually we used to perform what? Arithmetic operations in Cobol program. So it's very simple. Okay, so just we have just what we are going to do, we are going to use two things over here. The first one which is about what? Arithmetic verbs, and the next one which is about what we used to call as identifier, or data item name, or data item, or else literals. Using these two things only we are going to perform some calculations, or we are going to perform some arithmetic operations in Cobol program. Okay, so that's the thing that we are going to discuss over here in this presentation. Move to next slide. So this is going to be the introduction part for your arithmetic verbs. In problems, so in most of the Cobol programs, suppose if you have some problems like arithmetic calculations or arithmetic processing, or in short we used to call it as in computations. Normally technically we used to call it as in computations. So computations in the sense to compute something. To compute means to calculate something. For computation purposes normally we used to use this arithmetic verbs. So you will have some what? We will have some inputs and we will have some intermediate data. So on these intermediate data and input we are going to perform some computations. and basically these input which is going to be in forms of what, a numeric one. So arithmetic verbs basically which could be applied for numeric operands, numeric data items. So basically which is going to be in numeric in nature, and then to perform these computations we are going to use what, we are going to use arithmetic verbs. So all these verbs which is going to contain, either which is going to contain an identifier, or either which is going to contain a numeric literal, or you have the both a combinations of numeric literal and also you have identifiers. So it's very simple. So we are going to take some inputs, or we used to call this an intermediate data. So those intermediate data which is going to be in nature of what, which is going to be a numeric one. So those numeric data could be represented using a literal or data item name, or else we used to call it as an identifiers. So our combinations of both literals and identifiers we are going to have. So using these as an values and using some arithmetic verbs, basically we are going to perform what, we are going to perform some computations. Okay. And then so in case of identifiers, they must be an elementary numeric fields, and then it may use some words like giving. So for editing purposes or for unedited numeric fields, using giving option, we are going to store some results. So this particular giving options actually it is for storing results. So after computation, where are you going to store the results? Sometimes we won't use this giving option. Without using giving option, we used to store the results. Sometimes using giving option we used to store the results. So this particular giving option is for storing the resultant value but in a particular identifier. Okay. And then most of this whatever the identifier that we are going to use, which is going to be in forms of an elementary data item. So normally we have some two types of data item, like elementary data item and group data item we have discussed. Here we are not going to use any group data item. Instead we are going to use the data items in forms of elementary nature. So all those data item whatever that you're going to use, which is going to be an elementary data item. Okay. Move to next slide. So this is the first arithmetic verb that we are going to discuss. So in the slides you have explanations in a way that first you will have some introduction to that particular arithmetic verb, and then you will have some examples for arithmetic verbs. So in the introduction part you could learn as how we have to use those arithmetic forms. We used to call it as in general forms. Normally we have some general forms. General forms in the sense, normally in languages we used to use the syntax structure or syntactic notation as how we have to code. So we have some general forms as how we have to code. So here related to syntactic structure or syntactic structure, here we have the term we used to call it general forms. So general forms in the sense basically a syntax as how we have to use those arithmetic verbs. So in the introduction part you have some general forms, and then in the example part you will have some examples, real examples as how we have to make use of those arithmetic verbs. Okay, the corresponding arithmetic verbs. So the first verb that we're going to discuss here is add, which is going to be the first verb. So using this verb we are going to do what, we are going to do the addition process between two identifiers, two data item name, two literals, are both the identifiers and literals. So basically, so using this verb we are going to do which could be used to what, to find the sum of what, to our more numbers. So basically we're going to do some addition operation, and then we're going to produce some resultant value. And then we have two forms over here. In using adverb we have two forms. The first form is just using the adverb alone, that's going to be the first form. Second form is which is about using add and also giving option. So make a note, dear students, make a note. So we have two forms in adverb. The first form which is about just simply using add
Excuse me,
alone.
sir.
uh, Tell me, ma.
Sir, awareness class కూర్చున్నాను సార్
Uh,
నేనేం మాట్లాడలేదు.
okay, you could leave it exactly by what's the time that you have to leave?
జాయిన్ பண்ண சொன்னாங்க சார்.
Okay, you could leave by 10:40. Now the time is 10:35, I think so. So automatically you could leave, ma. Okay,
ஓகே
just
சார்.
you leave by 10:40. Okay, you no need to ask any permission from me. Just leave by 10:40. It won't be a problem. Okay,
ஓகே சார்.
so you could join by 10:45 there. Okay. So we have two forms in adverb. The first one, which is going to be about what we used to call it as an add literal one, literal two. Literal means what? Which is going to be in constant value. So whatever the constant value that we used to use, we used to call those constant value as literals. And then we have two in the sense using this particular actually two, which is going to be a subverb of adverb. So using this uh, from where we are going to add and to what we are going to add. So what is the number that you're going to add? To which number that you're going to add? That what about 2. So we're going to take a number and we're going to add it to which number. So this 2 which refers to which number we are going to add that particular value. That's about 2. So identifier 3 and then identifier 4. So you have a sequence of some identifiers as 1, 2, 3. And then second general form you have what? Add literal 1 comma literal 2 comma literal 3, giving identifier 4 comma identifier 5. So these are just two general forms. In the first general form you have what? Add and to. In the second general form you have add and giving. So make a note, dear students, you have two general forms in using add arithmetic verbs. In the first form you have what? Add and to. That's going to be the first form, add and to. The second general form what you have add and giving option. So you have two arithmetic two adverbs, two general forms for your adverbs over here. Okay, move to next slide please. Okay, so this is going to be the examples as how we have to use it. So we have some simple examples. The first one, which is about what? Add A to B. Add capital A to B. So dear students, I will be asking some questions in between the sessions. Okay. So soon after explaining some concepts with some inputs, I will ask you some questions. So don't be fearful to answer those questions. Basically, those questions which is going to be a simplest one to you people. Suppose if you know answers, you could post the answers. Suppose if you don't know answers, also you have to post the answers. You have to post value, the value which is going to be 0, or the value is going to be 1. Okay. Suppose if you know the answer, you could post the answer. You could type the answer. So whatever the answer that you know, you could type it. Suppose if you don't know answer, you could type 1. Okay. So that's the thing that you people are going to do now. Just for interaction purposes, I'm doing this. Okay. So we have some examples. See, the first example that we have related to add here, the first one is about what? Add A to B. Add capital A to B. Now the capital A, which is so you people know add, why we are using add for addition purposes, which denotes we are going to perform the addition computation. We are using add verb, and then we have at A to B. Now the A, which consists of A, which is an identifier, and then B, which is an identifier. So A, which is going to be identifier 1, and capital B, which is going to be another identifier, it is an identifier 2. Now I am going to add the value of A to B. Okay. The question here is what is going to happen over here. So now the value of A, which is going to be 4, and the value of B, which is going to be 3. Okay. So before computation, the value of A, which is going to be 4, and value of B, which is going to be what? 3. And after computation, the value of A will change to what? 4 itself, and the value of B will change to what? 7. So adding the value of A and B, the resultant value will be stored in B, capital B. So that's what this example says. So this example shows what? The value of A will be added to the value of B, and then the resultant will be stored in B, and then the alignment of the decimal point is done automatically. So those decimal point processing will be done automatically. So we are not going to consider about decimal points here. So what is the thing? So the example here is add A to B. A, which is going to consist of value at 4, and then b, which is going to consist of value what 3. Okay, and then so this is before computation, the value of a is 4 and value of b is 3, and after computation the value of a will be 4 and the value of b will be 7. Okay, so how this 7 comes? So by adding the value of a and b, the resultant value will be stored in b. So that's how the value of 7 will move to this particular identifier b. Okay, now the question is the simple question. We are going to use the same what the same identifiers at same form, add a to b. So before computation the value of a will be 6 and the value of b will be 12. Okay, and after computation what is going to be the value of a and value of b? So dear students, the question here is, dear students, the question here is what? You have two identifiers a and b. So what is the form that we are going to use here? Add capital A to capital B. So that's the general form. So before computation the value of a will be 6. Make a note, the value of a will be 6 and value of b will be 12. And after computation what will be the value of a and what will be the value of b? So post your answers in chat box. The simple question, nothing complex over here. It's simple question. So what is going to be the answers? So post your answers in chat box. Very good. Sharin have answered it very exactly, very correctly. The value of A will be 6 and the value of B will be 12 plus 6, 18. Okay, good, very good, very good. So that's the answer. Harina, you have to make a changes. The value of A will be what? 6 and b will be actually 18. You have mentioned it as 28 by maybe it may be a typing mistake, but the answer is what? 18. Okay, and Pragati have answered it correct and Harinath have answered it correctly. Okay, so what about the rest? So I have only three answers over here. Sharin, Harinath and then Pragati and then Surya have answered. I need everyone to answer. I need all the 14 members to answer. Okay, so two of them actually left. uh, so actually we have two absentees. Roll number 2 and 15 is absent. Remaining 12, we have 12 members. Among those 12 members, two members have left to some meeting, and we have some what 10 members here. Actually, we have to have some 10 members here. Um, Actually, one of the okay. So among I need all those 10 members to give answers. Okay, and then Divya have answered a equal to 6 and b equal to 18. Okay, good. So this is going to be the first example, and then the next example. So we're going to discuss our next example. Um, okay. So the next example is going to be add a b c to d. Now we are using what a similar example, but we have only one differences. To the left of 2, in the previous example we are using only one identifier. Now to the left of 2 we are using more than one identifier. So we are using three identifiers a, b and c, and to the right of 2 you have what d. So in this case what will happen? So in this case the value of a, b, c will be added to the old value of d and the resultant sum will be stored in d. So the first example, see here, for a I am going to give 2 and for b I am going to give 2 and c I am going to give 2, and already the value of d will be 4. Okay, so this is before computation. Make a note, before computation the value of a, b, c will be 2. For all these three identifiers a, b, c will be 2, and for d which will be what 4. Okay, this is before computation. And then after computation the value of a, b, c will remains what same, the value will be 2, and then the value of d alone will be changing, the value of d which is going to be what 10. Okay, so in this example this is the right example, I think so. Yes, the Pragati have answered, answer will be what 10. So you have ABC, which consists of the value 2, and then we are going to add it to what? Add it to D. Now already the existing value of D, which is going to be 4. So 4 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2. Now we are going to get the resultant value what? 10. So the 10 will be stored in D. So it's very simple. So all those um, identifier values which is present to the left of 2, so ABC, all those three identifiers value will be added, and that value will be added to the value of the identifier which presents to the right of 2. So the D already, which consists of 4, so 4 plus 2 plus 2 plus 2, so you have 6. So 4 plus 6, the resultant value which is going to be 10. So now after computation, the value of A, B, C will be 2 and the value of D will be 10. Okay, so this is going to be the second example. Now I would like to post some questions to you. Now the question is, now the value of ABC will be 1. The value of A will be 1, B will be 1 and C will be 1, and the value of D which is going to be what? 5. Okay, the value of D will be 5. So add ABC to D. So this is going to be the same example that I'm using here, but the value of ABC will be what? 1 for A, which is going to have the value 1, and B 1 and C 1, and for D the value which is going to be what? 5. So what is going to be the resultant value? So I need answers. So Sharin have answered it correctly. Answer is 8. Harinath answered it 8. Surya have answered it what? 8. um, Harshini, and what about Harshini and what about Divya? So Muthu may be presenting, he may not able to answer. But what about the rest of the people? I need everyone to answer. So Divya have answered it correctly as 8, and Surya have answered it. Okay, Harshini and then Pragati. Okay, so Pragati have answered it 8. Um, Afrin, what about Afrin? Okay, so thank you for answering. So appreciation to all those participants, those who have answered this particular question. Okay, so I hope you will have understood these concepts. So this will be enough. So actually, these two examples are actually basic. So with this basic, we would be able to reach the end of this particular arithmetic verbs. So the final the final topic, which is going to be about what divide in arithmetic verb, or compute. We have one more verb as compute verb. But these examples are very, very important, because these two examples just we discussed, which is going to be in basic thing, a base for every other calculation that we used to perform in the upcoming arithmetic verbs. So that's it. So thank you for interaction, and thank you for your active participation in answering the questions. I'm moving to the next example now. So add 30 comma a to b. We don't have actually comma here, but in this example what we have, add 30, and then you have a space, and then you have identifier capital A to what? We are going to add it to b. So this is going to be the example. So the 30, which is going to be in literal here, and now the a I am going to pass the value 1. Now a, which consists of value 1, and the b, which consists of the value 2. Okay, so add 30, which is in literal, and a, which is going to have the value 1, and b, which is going to have the value what? 2. And after computation, the resultant value will be stored in b. The resultant value, which is going to be what? 33. So 30 plus 1 plus 2, so you will have what? 33. So that's going to be the resultant value. So the resultant sum will be stored in b. Okay, and then the last example, which is in d example, add a comma b giving c. So this is going to be the last example. So here in this example, we are going to add the value of a comma b, and then we are going to store it in c. Okay, so here the values of a and b will be added, and the sum will be stored in c. So here we are not going to consider the value of c for summation purposes. So make a note, while using 2, normally we used to add the value of um, identifier which is present to the right of 2. See here, but here whatever the identifier that we have to the right of c, the identifier value, we must not use those identifier value for summation purposes. So the resultant value will be stored in C. So to store the resultant value, we are going to use the identifier next to giving. So to the right of giving, you will have identifier which is to store the resultant value alone, where suppose though it is going to have some value with it, we are not going to use it for summation purposes or addition purposes. So for example, the value of A which is going to be 3 and the value of B which is going to be 6, and now we are going to add this A and B value. So you will have 3 plus 6, you will have 9. The 9 will be stored in C. Now the C identifier which is going to have the value what, 9. Okay, and that's what they are mentioning over here in this slide, that here only the values of A will be added and the sum will be stored in C. The old value of C will be lost. Suppose before computation, suppose the value of C, suppose if it is going to have 2, that will be lost after computation, because after computation the resultant value only will be there in C. Okay, so you have two things over here: before computation, after computation. Before computation, computation in the sense, before computation process, what is the value that the identifier has, and after computation, what is the value it has. Okay, so that will be calculated. So old value of C will be last and the value will not take part in the summation process. So this is very important. So you must know the difference between using to and giving. So in to, whatever the value that we have to the right of 2 will be using, but here in giving, whatever the value that we have to the right of giving option, we are not going to use it. Okay, so that's the difference that we have. Move to next slide please. So that's all about add verb. The next verb that we're going to discuss about subtract verb. So this is very important verb. So this verb is used to perform the subtraction computation process in your identifier, whatever that is going to use. So which is used to subtract one or the sum of two or more numbers. So you have two forms of subtraction here. Normally subtracting one value with another value, that's going to be one of the form, and another form is subtracting one value with one or more value. So one or more value in the sense, for example, suppose if an identifier has some value as 8, and then you have two identifiers value, for example, the second identifier which is going to be 2 and third identifier which is going to be what, 6. So you have for example, I'm using three identifiers here: A, B and C. A which consists of 8, B which consists of 2 and C which consists of 6. Okay, now what we are going to do, we are going to subtract A with B and C, subtracting one identifier with one or more identifier. So at those situation, normally we used to add the one or more identifier value, and that particular value will be subtracted with the one value. Now here in this example, the A which consists of 8, and then B and C which consist of what, B which consists of 2 and C which consists of 6. Now what we have to do, we have to add the value of B and C, and then we have to subtract it with A. Now the value of A which is going to be 8 and the value of B which is going to be 2 and C is going to be 6. Now I am going to add the value of B and C, so 2 plus 6 we will have 8. Now the value of 8 A will be 8, so 8 minus 8, now the resultant value will be 0. So that's what they are mentioning in the first line as we used to subtract 1 or the sum of 2 or more numbers from 1 or more numbers, so to store the results. Here we used to perform two things, both addition and also subtraction. So using simple subtract verb, the same statement, we used to perform both addition and also subtraction, but the main objective here is what, we used to perform subtraction, but we used to perform both the things for calculation purposes. So you have some two general forms here. The first general form is using from, and second general form which is using giving option. So in the previous example, in the add verb, we have used two verbs, two subcomponents along with the add verb, what, to and giving. In subtract, what we are using, from and giving. So make a note, in add we used to use what, to and giving. We have two components in add verb, to and giving. Here in subtract verb we are using two components. The two components here are from and giving. Okay, so this is very important. So you have subtract numeric 1 and numeric 2 from literal 1 and literal 2, and then giving identifier 5 and identifier 6. So this is going to be the general form that we have. Muthu, kindly move to the next slide, ma. Next slide, please. The next slide. So these are the examples that we have related to subtract verb. So what is the first example that we have? Subtract A from B. So this is going to be the first example that we have. So in this example, we are going to subtract the value of A from B. Okay. Suppose now the value of A, which is going to be now the value of A, which is going to be 10, and then the value of B, which is going to be what, for example 20. Now how we are going to subtract the A value from the B value, and where the resultant value will be stored? The resultant value will be stored in B itself. Okay. So this statement, this particular statement, which means the value of A will be subtracted from the value of B, and the subtracted resultant value will be stored in what? Capital B itself. So now the value of A will be 10 and the value of B will be 20. I am going to subtract the A value from B value. So we will have what? 20 minus 10. Now we are going to have 10. The final, that value 10, the resultant value will be stored in where? In the identifier capital B. So it's very simple. So we are going to subtract, and finally the result will be stored to the right of from. So whatever the identifier that we have, to the right of from, there it will get stored. Okay. So this is going to be the first example that we have. Then the second example, which is going to be um, subtract A comma B from C. Now what will happen? This is automatically question. Now what will happen? Because to the left of from we have two identifiers, okay, and to the right of from you have what? Only one identifiers. Now here it is going to be work in a way that we are going to add the value of A and B, and that value will be subtracted from the value of C, and the resultant value will be stored in C. So this is how the process will happen. So here we used to perform both addition and also subtraction also in this statement. So here which shows the value of B and A will be added, and the resultant sum will be subtracted from C, and after subtraction the final resultant value will be stored in where? C. So that's what they are referring here in this particular slide. So for example, so what is the example that we have? A, B and C from C. Now the value of A will be 2 and the value of B will be 3 and the value of C will be 10. Okay. Dear students, kindly answer to this question. So here the question is, we are using the second example here, example B. So in this B example, what we have? Subtract A comma B from C. Okay. Now the value of A is going to be what? 2, and the value of B, which is going to be what? Which is going to be 3, and the value of C, which is going to be what? The value of C, which is going to be 10. Okay. So we have mm, three values over here, A, B and C. The value of A, which is going to be 2, and the value of B, which is going to be 3, and the value of C, which is going to be 10. So what is going to be the resultant value of C? Okay, the A and B value is going to be what? The resultant value is going to be 5. Surya have answered it very correctly. The resultant value is going to be what? 5. And then Sharin Sweetie have answered it as what? 15. Sharin Sweetie here, oh, okay, C equal to 5. Okay, good. We are not doing addition process here. What we are doing? We are subtracting. So we have to subtract. And Surya have answered only, and then Divya have answered, okay, correct. And then Harinath have answered it. The answer is 5. Okay, correct. So what about the rest? I don't know what the rest of the people are doing, because you people are repetitively answering, and I don't know what the rest of the people are doing. So okay, so here what? The value of A will be 2 and B will be 3. So now we are going to add the value of A and B. So what we will have? We will have 5, and then where we are going to subtract from, which value that we are going to subtract from C. Now the value of C is going to be what? 10. So 10 minus 5, The resultant value is going to be about 5. The resultant value will be stored in C. So before computation, the value of C will be what? 10. After computation, the value of C will be 5. Okay. Okay. So already it's time up. With this, I would like to stop the presentation. Thank you, students. Thank you for listening very patiently. Thank you.